We are now on really one of my favorite agenda items, and that is item 4.1, the 2017-18 Exemplary Program Award. And I'm going to ask our Executive Vice Chancellor, Laura Hope, to present on this, along with our head of our Academic Senate. Yeah, Julie Bruno.
Thank you, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, and members of the board, and Chancellor Oakley. It's our pleasure to spend a little time really honoring the exceptional work that so many of our colleagues do. And this is just one of the highlights that are out there in the field. As the board item indicates, since 1991, the Board of Governors has been promoting the practices of colleges through these awards, and we have several to share with you today. This year's theme was Guided Pathways, appropriately, since that's one of the big areas that we're looking to promote system-wide. And I'm very excited to hand it over to Julie Bruno, who's going to spend a little time talking to you about the specifics of these exceptional programs.
So good afternoon. Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to just recognize the Foundation for California Community Colleges. They have been the sponsors of this award, and so we would just like to extend our gratitude towards them, because without them, we would not have awards. So we're very pleased with that. These awards really provide an excellent opportunity to showcase exceptional programs at our colleges, as Laura was saying. And of course, this year, our theme is Guided Pathways. We thought it would be a great way to sort of see what's happening out there and get some examples of colleges that are really adapting to their student populations and really helping to support students to attain their educational goals. And we have 4 wonderful winners for you today. The award recognizes programs that really do the following: that show evidence of overall success of their programs, contribute to faculty engagement, demonstrate a response to the needs of students, faculty, and the college, collaborate with other programs on campus or within the community, provide evidence that supports that demonstrates how the program supports the community college mission, and programs that can be used as models for other colleges. Exemplary Award Program Award recipients are selected from community colleges throughout the state, with no more than 2 from any one Academic Senate for California Community College area, and each college may nominate 1 program to receive this prestigious honor. So like I said, we do have 4 for you today, and I am thrilled to begin the introductions with Los Angeles Trade Technical College. They won for their Advanced Transportation and Manufacturing Pathway, or ATM, which is easy to remember. Jess Guerrera, the Department Chair of Advanced Transportation and Manufacturing, is with us to give you a little information about his program.
Welcome, Jess.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Well, I'd like to start off by just taking a quick moment to thank the Academic Senate, the Foundation, and the Board of Governors as well for this great award. And just to give you a little bit of background, LA Trade Tech has had a full commitment to Guided Pathways since 2011. Our Advanced Transportation Manufacturing, or ATM, right? The ATM that we struggle to put money into, not get money out of. The ATM pathway was one of our first pathways that we launched at the college. So to give you a sense of scope, we have about an unduplicated headcount of about 1,600 students with 10 different programs. All of the transportation programs such as rail systems technology, automotive, collision repair, manufacturing programs like machine shop, manufacturing and industrial technology, and all of the electronics. And really, you know, what the strategy is about meeting students where they are, and not just academically, but really literally. It was about bringing all of the services to the students, and it started out with developing a pathway team, which consists of the dean, the department chair, a pathway navigator, and a counselor. And I should note that it's not just assigning a counselor, it's actually bringing a counselor into the pathway to live in the pathway with us, and establishing a pathway office that could be a one-stop shop for the students to get all of the different services. So not only would they access their counselors there, but we bring in once a week financial aid, EOPS, and we bring a lot of other services to them. So Also, from that pathway office, what we do is we have established through collaborating with a lot of English, our English department, math, and sciences, and all of those. We've developed guided choices. So it takes the guesswork for the students of what they should be taking in order to be able to gain a degree. So they get their schedule as soon as they come in. That we are able to provide them a block schedule of 2 years of what it's going to take, whether they're in a 1-year program, year and a half, or whether they're in a 2-year program. And one of the advantages of this is that seeing the great need that there is in English and math, we actually have a full-time English and math professors that are in the pathway. They actually work out of there. We schedule all of the classes out of that same building. And this has created a really close relationship with them and the students. We have a lot of other events that are part of the pathway, and I know that being conscious of time, but we have the pathway welcome right from the very beginning when students come in. We've launched what we call Pathway Ready. 2 weeks before they come before the term begins, we get all brand new students. Familiarize them with the pathway team, the resources that are out there. We give them the Canvas training so that they can, be competent. We give them a lot of the shared competency material, like safety tools and all of those things, so that on day one they could be ready to start. We introduce them on day one through the entire pathway team. English, math faculty are assigned science and history faculty that are working closely with our pathways. So this has really helped to bring together the entire campus community. And, ultimately, we do assess all our students to see their level of self-efficacy, the awareness of career options, the resources on campus, both on campus and off. And then based on what we get from that, we're able to schedule workshops for them. These could be in time management, it could be financial literacy, it could be a different array of things. The results are really that our students are now getting the support that they need. Because even though before we've always had counselors, but our students have been afraid of going to the counseling office, or they just simply don't want to wait an hour and a half to see a counselor. Now that they have one there, it's easy, it's accessible to them. And the biggest change I want to say is that our students are beginning to lose that fear of English and math. They're beginning to, because they're in cohorted sessions. So we're taking all of those best practices, cohorts, being able to contextualize material, being able to learn from all of those things and trying to bring them all together in one place. We've already seen an increase in certificates. We're also seeing that we're beginning to move the needle in degrees, and we're really looking forward to making a much larger impact as these pathways continue to evolve and mature.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. I mean, that whole comprehensive explanation tells us what it really looks like on the ground to do this successfully. So I appreciate you taking the time to describe that for us. Okay, and Julie, I think I know you guys all have to catch a flight, so we'll take a photo now, present you with your award, and take a photo with your team.
Perfect.
Sound good? All right.
And I'm going to have you move more to, yep, between the flags. That's perfect. Good. Okay, everyone, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to do a backup. Joseph, can I have you step just a little bit more? I'm cutting you off.
Okay. I believe our next awardee is from Santa Barbara City College.
Yes,
We have ATM and ESP.
I know,
love
right?
this.
Isn't it great?
This is great.
Easy to remember. Okay, so from Santa Barbara City College, we have their Express to Success program. Kathy Malloy, the director of the program, is with us today. And Alice is taking pictures because, of course, Alice Perez is also from her college. So,
Welcome, Ms. Malloy.
And she's also taking pictures because she had a big hand in the program here. So
Great.
we appreciate the fact that you have inherited her, but we also are not that happy about losing her. So, I would have, if I'd known we were going to be postponing the start of our semester another week, I would have brought two more people with me. One, our math faculty member, Pam Gunther, who began on her own, brave soul in the math department, to try and do something about the success rates of developmental math. And then our counselor, who began our program too and started the whole idea of integrating instruction and student support. So our program, ESP, I take no credit for the name. It came to us from our EVP, Expresses Success, ESP. It began with a grant in 2010. It was our first Title V HSI grant. And it was to increase the success of our Latino and low-income students and to address the needs of developmental math and English students. And what we came up with after doing a lot of research, including research that Katie Hearn and Myra Snell did on the leaky pipeline, we developed accelerated learning communities for developmental students. And we added the counseling piece in there, which is now 2 full-time counselors who are part of our program, and they counsel our students all the way through, even when they leave the program. So they have that counselor for life. Our learning communities are a little bit different in that we have the same teacher and same students together all the time. So it's not different teachers and the same students. And we find that that's really effective. We have counselors who do all the intake. They advise students, they register them, and they come to the classes to explain services, to set up appointments. And then we also have incorporated a lot of non-cognitive strategies for our students to help them become effective students and develop a sense of belonging in the class as well. Our program starts at 2 levels below college level, goes all the way through college math and English. And so we try to accomplish that in 1 semester. And we have had a great deal of success with it, and I think it's due to all those different factors. It is due in part to the faculty who volunteered to do this. They did the research and came up with the model based on what other people were doing. Like teachers everywhere, we take what's good other people are doing. And then we added our own take to it. And so our students who start in our ESP program in math or English complete in 1 semester at a 40 to 50% higher rate their college level English or math than students who start at the 1 class below and succeed and then take the next class in a year and then go on. So in 1 semester, 40 to 50% higher success rate. It's not just because of the leaks in the exit zones there, it's because of what's going on in the classes. The students have expanded tutoring and inside and outside of class, and these are all tutors who have been in the classes themselves, been successful, been part of the program, and so they're also role models to our students. Alice, what am I leaving out? You're not listening. Okay. Another thing that we're particularly proud of is the fact that we really did inspire, I believe, our counselors to develop the case management approach because it worked so well with us. It's taken a while, but it is actually becoming more of the norm than it ever was before. So I think having that faculty and we see it sort of as a triangle, the counselors, the faculty, and the students, and we'll make it a square because we have the tutors too. Working together, they all see themselves as part of the same team and supporting each other. And if a student gets in trouble, they have a learning community, they have a community in the classroom, but we also contact the counselors and they'll bring them in and they'll talk to them about resources and direct them where they need to go. So they feel really well supported. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Congratulations. Okay, so we will do photos? Sure. Okay, great.
Why don't you join us, Alice?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Go. Don't lose that.
Congratulations. Great, great.
And squeeze tighter. Can you? Sorry. Got it.
Excuse me. Our next reward recipient is Mira Costa College. They're an honorable mention for their Bridge to Success in Math, BTSM. Sorry, not a. I'm sure they have a nice acronym that they use on their campus. We have three of my colleagues that are connected to the program. We have Dr. Leela Safara-Leon, who is math faculty, Sinclair Tyrona, who is coordinator of testing services, and Freddie Ramirez, the dean of admissions and student support. I will turn it over to them.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to be here today. So let me start over. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. I'm also very grateful and thankful to Academic Senate Foundation for recognizing this program. I joined the Mira Costa Math Department in 2013 as a full-time math faculty and leader of pre-transfer courses. We refer to developmental math courses as pre-transfer courses in our college. I noticed after looking at the data that about 77% of entering college students are placed in pre-transfer courses. And at that time, we had three math level courses under college level. It's pre-algebra, elementary algebra, and intermediate algebra. So imagine if a student is placed in pre-algebra, they need at least 1.5 years to get to transfer level, assuming that they pass every class. But after looking at data, I noticed that only about 6% of our students who are placed in pre-algebra courses can ever successfully complete a first transfer level math course. And I also noticed that students are placed in these courses by taking the placement test, and usually they are taking the placement test cold without any preparation. So I came up with the idea of the Bridge to Success in Math program, which is a very short program to provide a shorter path to transfer level math. And students attend the program for 7 days, 4 hours per day, 2 hours of lecture, and 2 hours of review of what they learned during the lecture. So 2 hours review right after the lecture. And we launched the program in 2014 with my colleague Lisa Menek, who was the coordinator of the testing center at that time. And since then, we have served about 600 students, and the overall success rate for the program is about 96%.
That's amazing.
We also track our students to see how they perform in the next math class, in the successive math class, and our students, in average, do 10% better than their counterparts because of the relation that they create with the student services during the program, and they constantly go to the Math Learning Center to get help because of what they learned during the program. I have Sinclair from Testing Center here to provide some information about the testing part of the program.
Yes, and with the implementations of multiple measures for placement, we do find this program to be uniquely situated to help a variety of students, including those whose high school coursework and GPA may not make them eligible for transfer level courses, those who are looking to bypass the repeatability rule, as well as students looking to meet competency in math for an associate's degree. And lastly, we find a lot of students who really just want this opportunity to be able to brush up on their math skills and build that confidence in math before embarking into a transfer level math course.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you again to Academic Senate Foundation for recognizing the program. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you. Let's have Skyline come up next, and then we'll do a group photo with.
Sure.
Nobody from Skyline? Yeah, say a few words, and then we'll take photos with Mira Costa. Okay.
So unfortunately, our last awardee, Skyline College, they received an honorable mention for their Engineering Tech Scholar STEM Pathway Program, which is, they call it ETS for short. The program supports recruitment of underserved students who often do not see themselves completing courses within STEM pathways. There's a cohort model. They complete major and core requirements together, and they work with peer relationships and wraparound support, such as comprehensive mental health needs assessment. The program also incorporates contextualized learning, supplemental instruction, and one-to-one tutoring, as well as financial scholarships. In fall of 2016, the data showed that 81% of their students passed trigonometry compared to 43% of the college average. So you can see their success is really wonderful. And likewise, 66% of ETS students pass pre-calculus compared to 57.8% of the college average. So they're doing wonderful work at Skyline. It's unfortunate that we do not have a member to join us here today, but I'd like to recognize them as well.
Great. Well, let's congratulate all of our winners. One more photo, and then we will move on to more celebrations. Congratulations. What an amazing program. Congratulations. Okay. Did you guys coordinate the?
We didn't.
I didn't. I clearly didn't.
She's not.
This is your.
She's with us.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Let's get a little bit closer. We're a big group this time.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you again.
Well, Julie, thank you for coordinating that and bringing to our attention such amazing programs. It's really a wonderful thing to be able to see how it works. All right. Well, before we move on to other business, we have one more presentation we'd like to make. Last meeting was the last official meeting of Eric Skinner as our Deputy Chancellor. He has gone on to become a Vice President.
Some fancy title at some district.
Sierra College. And we, this happened over the holidays. We're very happy for Eric, but we're also really going to miss you, Eric. And we wanted to make sure we gave you a proper send-off and present you with a commendation for your long service here at the Chancellor's office. Mostly, we just want to embarrass you for the next few minutes. So I'm going to actually see if my colleagues would like to say a few words about Eric. I can't call you Deputy Chancellor anymore, Vice President Skinner. So I don't know if you guys would like, why don't we go around? Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
So, Mr. Skinner, it's been a pleasure working with you in the short amount of time that we've known each other. I kind of want to tell the first time that I ever met you. I was actually with my buddy Manveer, and we were here with SSCCC for the one and only meeting that I was a part of their board of directors. And we see the chambers. And my homie, he's like trying to convince me to let's go in. And I was like, no, man, the room's dark. Like, I'm not trying to walk in there. So we walk in and we see Mr. Skinner. And honestly, he gave me a heart attack because it was completely dark. No one else was in here. But then we started having a conversation. I was like, man, this guy's really cool. And then, after getting to know him, I gotta say, I'm really gonna miss you. But Sierra College has some great people. So I wish you the best of luck. And hopefully, we run into each other someday.
All I can say is, Eric, I'm really going to miss you. You've really been a great support for me, help your family, especially with veterans with Sierra going, they've got a good program there. So I'm just going to it saddens me that you're leaving, but I know you're not leaving the system. It benefits them, but it's growth for other people too here. But I know you'll always be a resource or a call away. So don't be surprised if all of a sudden we show up on your doorstep. But thank you again for everything and for making me a better person.
I can say that I will miss you, but then you're only 30 minutes away from me, we're in the same field, so I will see you in the field. I do want to say that with you gone, the Chancellor's office is absent of a very stable and competent hand, and you have big shoes to fill for those who are aspiring to fill your shoes. But thanks for all the good work that you've done for the Chancellor's Office of the past 10 years.
Like everyone else, Eric, thank you for everything you've done for us. It seems like the change has already done you well. You're so refreshed. You look younger. But thank you for everything, being so responsive and obviously answering questions as fast as you could, and always looking into the details when we had questions. And also, for the succulents you gave me, thank you for that. So take care.
Well, I don't know what I can add, but I hope you get a chance to do a little bit more fishing with your children. So good luck.
So I think I've said this before, but I feel like everything's been said, but not everybody's said it. But I do want to thank you. I know that I was probably one of your highest maintenance board members in terms of asking you a million questions, and you really helped me learn a lot about the system. You were always very responsive and with great answers, and I'll really miss that. I do want to commend your new suit. You can tell that you've gotten a higher paying job because the clothes are looking a lot better already.
Eric, just to say thank you for all your time, talent, and hard work that you've provided to the Chancellor's office. And it's good news that you are still in the community college system by going to Sierra. But I also want to thank you for all of the hard work and perspective that you brought as a commissioner to the ACC-JC Accrediting Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, President Stellano. Eric, we've known each other probably longer than both of us really want to admit, because it dates back prior to me being on the board. But congratulations, welcome to the field, and I wish you the best.
So, Eric, I want to thank you for your service. You have, in many cases, been the linchpin when our state chancellors have left. And from my perspective as a trustee in the area and my time on the board, that transition has been seamless. And it's really important that we had somebody like you as steady, able to take on that role and that responsibilities. So thank you for that. On the note of going off to Sierra, it's a double-edged sword for us because we get at Los Rios accused of skimming talent here at the Chancellor's office. So I'm pleased that I'm sort of we could have used you, but we won't be accused. But we won't be accused of skimming. We can give that to Sierra. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to close out by obviously let the Chancellor have a few words as well, but I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your friendship. You know, I've been on the board, I think, a little over 4 years, and you have taught me so much, and not just about the system and about all your institutional knowledge, not just about community colleges, about state workings, but also I've learned a lot about from your leadership. You're steady, responsive, responsible, the utmost integrity, pretty unflappable. You've seen us through a lot of changes, as well as changes at the top, and Pam's right. You've been that rock for our system through some major shifts. But also, I just really appreciate you being there for every one of us. When we had random, sometimes really silly and dumb questions, you were always incredibly patient with us. You pretty much raised up this next generation of board members, and we've really come to rely on you. I guess we have to let you go and let you really enjoy the fruits of your labor at a place that's going to really value you. And Sierra College is so lucky to have you there as a leader and as somebody who's going to, provide that level of commitment and service to the students. So I will miss you terribly, but you're not that far away. So we just decided on where we're going to visit in 2018. I have a feeling we may be coming your way in 2019. But thank you for coming today. I know you're in your new job and probably a lot of demands on you as school is starting up, but we really did want to say goodbye, and I hope you will be joining us for dinner tonight. and we can raise a glass and toast you in your new endeavor. So thank you, Eric. And Chancellor, do you want to say a few words before we present this?
I just want to comment on some of the whereases in the proclamation, but, and by the way, if there are dumb questions in the future, feel free to refer them to Eric.
You said my questions were
But seriously, just to give you an idea of what Eric has weathered, and I won't go through all the whereases, but it includes things like, holding interim leadership positions throughout the various changes in chancellors. It's about improving the educational outcomes of the more than 2.1 million students. It's about the resolve that Eric had in dealing with the challenges to City College of San Francisco and its accreditation.
Absolutely.
And it's about year after year working with the governor's office, with finance, and ensuring that our students receive the benefit of every dollar possible. It's about the implementation of guided pathways, the student success, task force recommendations, and on and on and on. So, and then there's one other caveat here that now that you're in the field, you cannot complain about the Chancellor's office. But I just want to say thank you as well, Eric, for helping me transition to the Chancellor's office. Having you here made that transition much easier, although I think the jury's still out whether it was effective, but it certainly made it much easier. So thank you.
Please.
Well, thank you very much. Heartwarming comments, and they mean a lot to me. And all I want to say is I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve here. It was my 10, almost 11 years here were definitely the high point of my career to date, and I felt very honored and privileged to have the opportunity to serve here. It's a fabulous team, great colleagues from Chancellor Oakley to the executive vice chancellors, the vice chancellors, all the way up and down the chain. Amazing people. And I would just say to anybody listening, I mean, there are few jobs in the world where you can have the positive impact that you can out of this office. And if you're interested in coming and being part of an amazing team, go for it. I'm so glad I was here for the time I was here, and I look forward to our continued friendships and joint partnerships and advocating on behalf of the system together. So it's not the end of things. It's just kind of a next chapter. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to experience life on a campus, and so far so good. I started on January 2nd, and it's an amazing team at Sierra College, and I'm looking forward to experiencing things from that perspective. But I tell you, this is a very special place, the Chancellor's office, and you as a board are. It's a unique entity in terms of the scope of influence you have, the ability you have to shape lives, to make California a better place. And so thank you for your service, and thank you for the last 10 years. So
Thank you. To Eric Skinner. Yeah, if you guys want, this is not just us. You guys come up.
Here, why don't you jump in the middle here?
Yeah, you've done this. Okay, come on. Remember, pretend like we like each other. I get really close together. Really close. I think we may have to move a couple people.
Or over there, sideways.
Are we good? Are we balanced, Paige?
I'll move over there.
Tom, I think you have to go sideways.
Okay.
Sideways. Yeah, let's get all a little
Sideways. Sideways. Okay, there we go. Great. Okay, one more hug. You're gonna do that tonight. Oh, goodness. We got to hear about, yeah, Eric.
And if I could just say one last thing, I'm not sure if my family's watching, but I just wanted to say that I couldn't have done what I did here without the support of my beautiful wife, Janet, and my sons, Ethan and Ben.
Oh, that's very nice. Okay, well, we got to hear about exemplary programs and we got to honor an exemplary staff member. So what more is there to do but the first reading of a requirement of the plan work experience credit? Okay, so let's get back to our items. We have a first reading, item 3.2, and I want to welcome Alice Perez. I think this is your first time appearing before the Board of Governors.
Yes, thank you.
Am I correct?
That's correct.
I think I have to read something formal, so give me a second. Item 3.2 is a first reading and public hearing for proposed regulations related to cooperative work experience plans and courses. The Chancellor and staff will now provide information on the item. Vice Chancellor Perez, please get started.
Great. Thank you, President Esolano and Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board. It's a privilege to be here. This is a very straightforward item with a number of amendments to our Title V Ed Code regarding our cooperative work experience legislation and guidance to the field. And primarily, in our effort to streamline curriculum, this folds in to that same effort so that we're now placing the authority for coming up with a cooperative work experience plan and courses to the field, to the districts, rather than having that be residing at the Chancellor's office. The other amendment is to allow for half-unit increments for the work experience credits, and that codifies it more clearly to the field so that there's no confusion, but that the half units will now be allowed. And those changes are in your packet, and there are very few wordsmithing changes to affect that decentralization, if you will, and the half-unit increment allowance.
Great, succinct, very to the point.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Well, first of all, the public hearing on item 3.2, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 55250, 55251, and 55256.5 is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimonies from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Are they beating down the door, Vice President Epstein? No. Okay. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. I'd like to open it up to questions from the Board of Governors. Board Member Belansky.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment on this as being one who works in a community college to actually now give local approval and just having to send the course forward for a state control number is very helpful, because I think that it will provide colleges more opportunity to update and upgrade their work experience courses and keep them focused on the skills students need and in the right occupations and all of that. So thank you.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks for that comment. We agree.
Great. All right. I think that concludes this item. So we're going to move on to item 3.3, and that is the non-resident tuition exemption implementation. And our General Counsel, Marc Leforestier, is going to present on this item.
Good afternoon. AB 54 is a term that generally relates to the non-resident tuition exemption that's provided for under California law and reflected in Title V. The legislature made some changes to the AB 540 requirements last year, and the regulation that we're proposing would implement those changes. There are a couple of aspects of the regulations that I'd like to just flag for the board's attention. The first is that there will be a noticed substantive change to these regulations. The last subparagraph reflects language that was canceled out by double joining with respect to another statute. And then the other thing that I want to point out is that we've taken a slightly different approach to drafting this regulation than we did in the past. In a prior version, all of the statutory eligibility requirements were specifically enumerated in the text of the regulation. That's not necessary. One of the purposes of SB 68 was to add additional eligibility requirements relating to non-credit work and adult school coursework. The other was to clarify the statute. And so this regulation would envision relying on the eligibility requirements in the statute itself, so that if the statute is changed in the future, it's already been changed 4 times, it would not require a future amendment of the regulation. So that's the approach that we've taken. We're also preparing a guidance to provide some guidance to the field in more plain language that will be ready for release shortly. We're also working with the CSU and UC to develop the uniform affidavit that students need to use to apply for the non-resident tuition exemption, and that should be finalized in the coming week or 2.
Great. Okay. The public hearing on item 3.3, the proposed amendments to California Code of Regulations, Title V, Section 54045.5 is now open. The purpose of the hearing is for the Board of Governors to receive comments and testimony from members of the public regarding the proposed regulations. At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Vice President Epstein? Nothing. Silence is golden. Okay, this meeting is now closed. Hearing now for this public hearing is closed. This concludes the public hearing on this matter. Members of the Board of Governors, Board Member Belansky, you have a question or comment? Excellent.
Questions in a sense. In the new 1A, it says questionnaire form prescribed by the Chancellor. So there is a standardized form that has to be used? And could we see that sometime? Because I'm totally unaware of that.
The standardized form already exists to implement the existing AB 540. I can provide you a copy of that.
That'd be great.
It needs to be revised substantially to reflect the new changes in statute. So the current form wouldn't effectuate the now current eligibility requirements. So we're working between the sectors to fix that.
Okay, and I'll keep going through with district of enrollment. So in other words, what district you're taking classes in, or it's just a little awkward for me. And the other one that I find awkward is at the very bottom of the page. The student seeking this tuition exemption has the burden. Why not like obligation or requirement of providing, or burden is a little bit tough for me.
So that language exists in the current regulation.
Say that again?
That language exists in the current regulation, the burden.
I know, but we are updating it.
Right, we are updating it. And I think it's used in the legal sense, in the sense of a burden of proof. And that's why the term is used.
Difficult to use as language in Title V. I understand that it might be in law.
It's a term of art.
Pardon?
A term of art.
Right. And I think that language can be softened in the guidelines that we're issuing, which are going to be the document that's more commonly used probably in the field than the regulations. But I think it's important that the regulations reflect the meaningful legal term of art.
Yeah, I just find the term offensive, just to say it. And the last question I have is, in the second sheet, and you've mentioned this already, the eligibility requirements. What are the eligibility requirements?
Well, the statute lays them out in some detail. The new eligibility elements relate to the numbers of credits that can be allocated from non-credit coursework and adult school coursework. And so those can be, in the past, AB 540 standards have been restricted to essentially 3 years of California community college or high school. Now, in order to satisfy those 3 years, you can allocate non-credit coursework, whereas in the past you couldn't.
Also.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Board Member Haynes, please.
I just want to just make a comment. I'm very supportive of this expansion because it recognizes that our students are in very different places and therefore may have entered the doorway of adult education, and that should be recognized, as well as those incarcerated or formerly incarcerated folks. So this is a good thing, and I'm reminded of what Lark said this morning relative to the plan that we've been operating on that is more than 50 years old. It's like 67 years old, and the recognition that as old as it is, it does not reflect who our students are today. Didn't reflect it then, and there needs to be changes in recognition of where our students are and that they're here. And so I just want to commend us in moving in this direction.
No? Okay. I just want to make one note for those who've not had the pleasure of reading the new regulation. I would note that Section F talks about the documents and information obtained in providing the exemption will remain confidential and shall not be disclosed in response to a request for public records.
So I'll pause right there.
Yeah.
The sentence should end after confidential. So the rest of the language was removed as a result of double joining legislation not passing, and so that's where that's the substantive change that I referenced in the beginning. I'm not sure that it has a material, real-world impact in terms of the legislative choice that was made. But we will need to remove that language from the regulations, and we'll provide a 15-day notice after the comment period. So the version that you have on second reading will
have a change.
Will have a change. And it will be essentially the first part of that sentence ending with confidential, which is what the legislation looks like.
So the remainder of this, which gave me great confidence, will also be deleted.
Right, and that
Such
was not...
documents and information shall not be disclosed without the written consent of the student, except as necessary to administer the section or as otherwise required by law, California law, or state or federal court order.
Right, so that ultimately was not adopted by the legislature. Now, what's interesting about that language, just talking off the top, is it seems to anticipate how the public interest balancing test on the public records would operate. I'm not sure why the legislature ultimately had issues with that language, but I don't know that it would have any practical effect. You'll note that the last line of that section also provides an allowance for sharing information provided it's de-identified.
Right.
That is probably still the case, regardless of what that says.
So all of that that language is no longer going to be included in the second version.
All the bill ultimately said was
just
that
remain
the
confidential.
information remains confidential.
Okay.
Correct.
That's a change.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? The public hearing is closed. We'll have this back to us in a second reading. And then moving on. Oh, wait, the Chancellor's walking away. Is that possible? Item 4.2, the State of the System Report. Oh, no, he's just going over to the dais. Okay, great. Excellent. I'm excited about this. Item 4.2, the State of the System Report. Here it is, glossy and beautiful. Chancellor Oakley, take it away.
All right. Let me just pull this up.
It looks small. There's a lot in here.
Mm-hmm.
Get your copy now.
I am a Mac user, so it'll take me just a second to work with this prehistoric machine I have in front of me. Of course, I entered the wrong password. Okay.
We may need some technical assistance for the Chancellor.
I need
Come
to
on
hurry
up.
up and take one of those new online classes. All right. Okay, well, thank you, Board President Estolano, Vice President Epstein and the members of the board and the public. Well, it's not coming up over here. So as we figure this out.
You got it. You got it.
Okay. It gives me pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you about the state of the system, and in doing so, reflect the changes that are happening with the Vision for Success and how we're going to communicate this to you all going forward, because I think this is an important transition, and I want to make sure take the time to focus on those areas where there is going to be a transition from where we were reporting numbers a certain way to how we're going to be reporting them going forward, and along the way also point out some key elements of the state of the system currently. So first of all, you should all have this document in front of you. I will walk through it, but not every page, and certainly at the end, if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to address them. But first, let me point out something in the document itself. In the document, you have both a chart at the bottom that describes the annual head count from 2005-06 to 16-17, and then on the right-hand side, the student demographics by ethnicity. So let me just pause for a second to point a few things out. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's been a lot of discussion leading up to this that I think is relevant to this page. First of all, you can see that in 2008-09, we were serving nearly 2.7 million students. We are now serving, just over 2.1 million. Even though our budget is significantly increased, both in terms of overall budget and per student funding from 2008-09. So a lot of the discussion that we're having, a lot of the impacts on the colleges relate to this graphic. We are serving less students while we have more money, but there is increased demand in the workforce. So these are all influences that are affecting our colleges and thus will affect the state of the system over time. My hope is that the reporting that we are going to capture going forward will help us prompt the right questions and have the right discussion about how these impacts are affecting our colleges. The other graph I drew your attention to is the student demographic by ethnicity. You can see that the bar titled Hispanic continues to grow and will continue to grow. So between Hispanic and African American, we are 2016-17, half of our students. Half of the population we serve, and this half of the population we serve has the worst educational outcomes of all demographics. So this is why we talk about a crisis in our system. This is why we are trying to push and communicate to everyone that we must take action now, otherwise the fate of these students that are in this bar graph, this is more than just a bar graph. These are individuals. These are people. And we want to make sure we begin to affect them immediately. And so that's what the Vision for Success was all about. So as I turn to one other page, page 5 of the report that you have, I just want to again highlight the graph on the right-hand side, which describes the California Community College funding. In 2011 and 12, total funding for the system was $5.6 billion. Of that, 3.3 was a state general fund contribution. In 2017-18, it was $8.6 billion, with the state contributing $5.2 billion. And although we don't have 18-19 on this chart, that graph continues to rise. So we certainly have seen significant investment in the system. And I think this again begs the question, how are we deploying that investment? And again, the Vision for Success is what we hope will begin to answer those questions, and the reporting that we're going to talk about in a minute will begin to give the board better information about how those resources are being deployed. Because what we can say with absolute certainty is that the state is investing more money in our students, but our outcomes continue to lag. So if I can go to goal 1, which is on your screen, increase the number of students receiving credentials for in-demand jobs by at least 20%. So what this graph shows you is the projection in 2021 is that there will be about 706,000 projected job openings. The number at the bottom is the projected workforce supply, which based on the experience that we've had over the last several years, the projected workforce supply is 323,000. So that leaves a projected shortfall of 383 or so thousand people. And that's just not, and this projected workforce supply isn't just the effort of the California community colleges, but it's the effort of every institution trying to train the workforce. So this isn't just the community colleges. Our goal is to increase the number of students receiving credentials for in-demand jobs by at least 20%. So on the right-hand side of that graph, you see a bar graph showing that if we increase by 20% through 2021, we would expect to have about 270,000 students receiving credentials for in-demand jobs. That's a 20% increase. Now, two things I want to draw your attention to. One is when we created this goal, we relied on certain data from the federal government, specifically the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And the way that they calculate the demand and the shortage has changed in the last year. So the actual projected shortage has increased. So one question for the board that we don't have to answer today, but I think it's important to highlight that one, when we created this document, we created it specifically for it to be a dynamic document that will continue to respond to changes both in reporting, the availability of data, and the efforts of our colleges. We may need to come back to this at some point in time to determine if, while 20% is an aggressive number, is it enough? Is it enough to continue to close the projected shortfall? But this is what we will be reporting to you going forward, and our hope is that we can continue to push that number up. The other, well, I'll stop there. I don't know, Board President Solano, would you like me to take questions for each goal or just wait till the end?
I think we'll just roll through it all.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but I do want to say for board members, I had the pleasure of having Sandy Fried explain this methodological issue to me. This is a methodology problem that Bureau of Labor Statistics doubled the number of job openings because of the way they calculate it. So this is not us just getting it wrong and being really timid in our approach. This is, in 1 year, they completely changed their methodology. So it's an issue, right? But
it's an issue, and I think in general, as both the system, the state, and the federal government get better data, this number may continue to change. So we just have to be prepared for that. The underlying goal, the underlying effort is the right approach, but we're going to have to adjust as more and better data comes in. So I think being able to address these goals on an annual or every 2-year basis will be something we'll need to consider.
Right.
Okay. The next goal, goal 2, is the number of students who transfer to CSU and UC. Our goal is to increase that number by 35%. That goal requires us to work with UC and CSU, and as you heard before, we are working with both UC and CSU to try to address these. Both systems have commended our push to increase transfer, and both systems have reached out to us wanting to find ways to further improve transfer. We will continue to work with them as well as with the organization that represents the private independent nonprofits and continue to support transfer for all of our students. It'll be important for us to increase the number of associate degrees for transfer. This is the clearest pathway we have for transfer, so we need to continue to put emphasis on the associate's degree for transfer. We need to get to a point where we have a transfer guarantee with the University of California, we will make every effort to ensure that both the president of the university and the regents understand the importance of this. And also, we need to better understand why students who are eligible to transfer don't. We have a number of students who are at or near the transfer readiness threshold, and we need to better understand why they're not crossing that threshold. That's why the way that this goal was couched is that we will increase transfer, not we will increase the number of students transfer ready. We need to do work to reach out and understand how to get these students across the threshold to transfer and understand why they're not. The next goal is reducing the average units accumulated by students who complete degrees to 79, from 87 to 79%. So again, whereas in the past, with all of these measures, we've relied on the scorecard to determine the state of the system. We are going to come back to you with specific data on the goals as defined in the Vision for Success going forward. So on the goal of reducing the average units accumulated, we're going to continue to show progress toward that. As you can see, from 2013 through currently 2017, we've made very little progress. We are confident that the implementation of guided pathways will impact this number, and so it'll be important for us to continue to come back to this number as it relates to the implementation of guided pathways. The other thing that I want to say to this is that there are currently no meaningful gaps among student populations. So unit accumulation is happening across all ethnic and racial lines. So right now we don't see any major, any meaningful gaps amongst the student population. Goal number 4 speaks to the increase in the number of students who get jobs in their field of study to 69%, which essentially translates into a 15% increase. Again, this is another area where the board and staff struggled to more clearly define how we were going to measure this. Initially, we relied on a survey of the field. When the goal was created, there were a certain percentage of campuses that responded. Initially, the baseline identified 60% as the baseline, and that was based on a limited number of colleges, 68 who reported at that time. We now have more and better data. We believe that the baseline is closer to 69%. So in a sense, by getting better data on the baseline, we've already reached the initial goal. So we're going to have to come back to this and set a more aggressive goal now that we have better data and information from all the colleges. We still think that a 15% increase is a good number, but it should be applied to the new base, and we should think about revising this goal now that we have better data. Goal 5, equity gaps. So reduce the equity gaps by 40% in 5 years and completely eliminate in 10 years. Again, previous reporting through scorecard and other data elements showed clearly that we have some equity gaps in our system, at our colleges, and amongst different demographics of students. What we want to do going forward is focus on reducing those gaps and showing progress over a shorter cohort. So in your booklet, you have both the 4-year completion and the 3-year completion amongst the demographics that we are targeting. African American, American Indian, Asian, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, and white non-Hispanic. You can see the rates at which students are succeeding. That's the blue bar. The yellow bar or gold bar is the 5-year goal rate increase, and then the purple bar is the 10-year goal rate increase. So as you can see, there are significant gaps between African American, American Indian, Hispanic, Pacific Islander, and even white non-Hispanics to their Asian counterparts. That is how we will be measuring these goals and how we will be measuring whether or not we are closing these gaps. In addition to the 4-year completion, you can see that we also showed you the 3-year completion. Now, both of these numbers are a departure from the way that you've previously received the data. The data you've previously received is from the scorecard, which looks at a 6-year cohort, 6-year completion rates. We feel that coming down to a 4-year completion rate is more meaningful to the work that's happening in the field, more meaningful to our students, and more meaningful and much easier to understand for our for Californians. I think over time we can explore whether a 3-year makes more sense, but we want to begin by bringing this number down to a 4-year completion rate so that you can have a better idea of the impact. Now, we will continue to look at data. There's been many questions raised about disaggregating data, particularly around the Asian demographic group. We think for the purposes of this graph, it makes more sense to look at Asian success as an aggregate, and we're going to look at ways that we can disaggregate the data where it makes sense so we can see the impacts on groups within that bar. Because much can be said of many of the other bar graphs. If we disaggregate it based on the different experience of Hispanics, we begin to lose the value of looking at the aggregate number. We will begin to lose, and the achievement gaps will become less visible to us. So for the purposes of highlighting the achievement gaps, we feel that this is the best way to depict the achievement gaps. As we develop a better sense of how to better disaggregate data for specific inquiry, we will be coming back to you with some of those thoughts and ideas on where it makes the most sense to disaggregate the data. It will be a question for this board. We are making the recommendation that we use a 4-year completion going forward. That is a choice that the board will have to make, whether it's a 4-year completion, whether we go back to the 6-year, or whether we bring it down from 4 years to 3 or even 2 years. The further down you go, for example, a 2-year completion rate, it's a lot harder to see the differences in demographic group because, in a sense, all students are doing poorly at the 2-year rate. So it's harder to see where those differences are manifesting themselves over time. So as we continue to provide you with examples, with presentations, we're open to the discussion with the board on what makes the most sense to you all, what gives you the most information, and is there additional information that we could bring back to you that would give you a better sense of the achievement gap. Goal 6, similar to Goal 5, except we break it down by region. We understand that the state really operates on a regional basis. We think it's important not only to look at the overall achievement gaps from the state, but to also pay particular attention to regions in the state. And as you can see, we've broken it down in regions that are most closely associated with the Strong Workforce Initiative. So you're already familiar with how these regions were created. We wanted to remain consistent. So you have the Northern Bay Area, Central Valley, South Central, and we're talking about the coast, the coastal area, the Central Coast, Los Angeles, Inland Empire, and the San Diego region. Right now, we are basing the gaps on that highest number, the 46% rate. So we want to begin to move all regions higher. 46% still is not acceptable, but we're going to both close and continue to raise. But at least this gives you a way to determine, are we closing those regional equity gaps, and where are the areas that we need to pay most attention to. So, for example, Central Valley has a 35.3. It is one of the lowest along with the Inland Empire. That gives us a sense in the Chancellor's office where we need to begin to apply more effort, where we need to perhaps look at applying more resources or more support. None of these gaps are going to be easy to close, but at least it gives us a sense of where we want to lean in a little bit harder. So with that, let me just make a few additional comments. We have a number of metrics that we use in the system and have for many, many years. The scorecard is one set of data that looks at a 6-year cohort that reduces the number of students in the denominator based on the kind of information we want to get out of it. We have data that we're using for guided pathways, what we call key performance indicators, that give us much more information about a larger group of students, but are specific to the kinds of progress that we want to see students making that lead to these larger outcomes. And then we have the data that we're going to be presenting to you for the Vision for Success, which takes a little bit of both. We're going and are embarking in an effort to bring these data systems together. This is not going to be an easy task because we have data that's being shown for different purposes. But in order for us to gain the credibility not only of this board, but of Californians, we need to be able to clearly articulate how our students are doing across the regions, across our colleges, in order for us to better talk about what's working, what's not working, and what Californians should care about and what they should hold us accountable for. So we hope that this is the first step in that direction. We thank you for working with us on the Vision for Success. And as we transition, you will be seeing these metrics as well as metrics that we will evolve over time as we continue to look at these goals and see what makes the most sense, and as we get better and better data. I certainly do not expect, nor should I expect of my team, that the metrics we come out today should be the same we have in 5 or 6 or 7 years, because it's my expectation that we will have better data each and every year. As that improves, we will come back to you and try to articulate to you the data that we have and why we think it will better serve the purpose of helping you understand how our students are doing, and in turn hold us responsible and accountable for improving the system outcomes. So I will end there.
Thank you, Chancellor. Let's open up for questions from members of the board. I have a ton of them, but I guess since I'm president, I don't get to ask them first, so I'll let other folks begin the questioning. Board Member Belansky? Board Member Haynes? Okay, go ahead.
Just first, so that I better understand, on page 12, it talks about the STARS program, which was launched in 2017, or launched in 2017.
Yeah.
Is there any data yet on that, or how will that be collected to say this is a STAR program?
So the
114 colleges.
Right. The data that you see in, and let me go back to goal 4. The data that we're using for the STAR program really relates to this question about whether students are going into jobs that are related to their field of study. So surveys and a lot of the information that we're using to determine this number is being used to determine who those stars are.
So we'll get this information.
Yes. Yes. And so I don't know if I think we've lost
Vaughn's here.
Vice Chancellor Quinlivan, but the STAR program was just launched. We had our first round of workforce stars. Those colleges are directly related to improving this number. So those who have done the best based on the information that we're getting of the data that you see here, that's how we're rewarding
So
those
it's coming
colleges.
from these regional
Yes.
groups? Okay. The next question is on page 14.
And it's currently on our website.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Thank you. The next question is on page 14, and it's about AB 705. When does that go into place? The colleges are required to use the points or the regulations of AB 705.
I will refer the specific timelines to Vice Chancellor Mattoon, if she has them off the top of her head.
The implementation team had its first meeting last month. We're meeting again. And actually, Executive Vice Chancellor Laura Hope is leading this effort. Feel free to come join me. But the draft timeline that's been posted would have full implementation of AB 705 by fall of 2019.
And will there be different kind of, say, bullet points of things that can be used for assessment rather than just an exam, which has proven to be a problem? Because I think one of the things it said, and I can see there's going to need to be some training, and especially with people in A&R and people in counseling and all, but even one thing that was said, that a student could tell you what their high school grades were if they couldn't get their transcript. And so, you know, how to use, so it'd be helpful to see that. And when you do get it, could we get an update here?
Yes, absolutely. We're in the process of kind of working through the data flow of how we will both be gathering that data from the various systems who provide it to us, and then as a default to students if need be, because that data may not be available. And so once we kind of build a decision tree around that, we'll be happy to share that with the board.
And my last comment is on page 18, what is expected of colleges. Colleges should revisit their strategic planning and other institutional goals to make sure they are consistent with the vision. So how does that message get out to colleges and districts, and then how do you get any feedback that, yeah, we're doing that?
That is an excellent question. So the initial work that's being done is to communicate the vision for success to all the constituent groups, and that has been part of my routine to be at as many convenings of our constituent groups to talk about the vision for success. The second thing is, as part of the Guided Pathways implementation, we are using the vision for success as, you know, one of those foundational pieces. Two, we are working with organizations associated with professional development for the CEOs as well as for the trustees to ensure that there is a component that speaks to the vision for success in that professional development. And then finally, we're working through internally on mechanisms and how we can incorporate the goals of the vision for success in all new funding streams as they go forward. So that as we streamline planning, as we streamline categoricals, as we move money forward, that we're tying it to the vision for success so that there isn't a duplication of effort, and so that we are clear and consistent that these are the goals for the system, and we would like to see them reflected in the 72 districts' goals. One other comment I want to add to AB 705, which I think is an important one that you highlighted but we didn't respond to. Our ability to assess students will continue to evolve beyond what is in AB 705 today. So just as when we created the initiatives around having portable assessments and things of that nature many years ago, we fully expect to continue to learn how to better assess students currently in high school, just out of high school, returning after many, many years. So we want to continue to inform this process, and I appreciate the participation of both the board and our constituent groups in pulling together this task force that we see will continue to work for many years to come.
Board Member Haynes.
Thank you. So I have 3 questions. The first one has to do with needing the increase for ADTs and an agreement in paper and in writing with UC. there is an article, and I have not read it, but it's a recent article in the San Francisco Chronicle that lays out that many of our UC and CSU campuses really don't have the seat capacity that's necessary, which is kind of scary because so many of our students really do want to make that transition. I know that you sit on at least one of those boards. And so my question is there anything from our end to assist, to facilitate, and to advocate, to make certain that as we push out these new programs and these new initiatives, that there is some recognition that there needs to be a pipeline, a pathway into a seat at one of our sister colleges?
I think that's a great question. So a couple of things are happening. First, most of the data you see reported in the press is freshman admit data. So it's freshman seats. That is where most of the friction is in terms of CSU and UC's ability to admit more students. Although, while UC has increased enrollment, CSU has been challenged to increase enrollment. The applications for transfer for both CSU and UC have also increased. And so both systems are saying that they're putting a priority on transfers. In the case of the University of California, they're required to meet a 2-to-1 ratio. For every 2 freshman admits, they're required to admit 1 transfer student. So there's a specific framework in place for UC. To my knowledge, one doesn't exist for CSU, but we are working with the Chancellor's Office at the CSU to recognize the need to advocate together for more transfer capacity. So it forces us to advocate for transfer slots. We've already begun to do that with the Department of Finance. We've made very clear that it is our goal to increase transfer and that it should be the goal of the state to ensure that there's transfer capacity at CSU and UC. Part of that is continuing to improve our ADT agreements and our ADT implementation with CSU. The other part of that is to continue the conversations, and I want to thank Julie Bruno in the Senate for bringing us far along in the conversation with the University of California. Having said that, we still need to take a few more steps forward to put in writing a specific transfer agreement that can be communicated to all students. The final thing I will say to that is, having said all that, we recognize that CSU and UC are not the only transfer institutions for our students. The institutions that are part of the independent private nonprofits are also transfer partners of ours, and we appreciate the Department of Finance asking them to sit down with us to create an agreement that honors the ADT as well. So while the goal speaks specifically to CSU and UC, it is also our job in the Chancellor's Office to increase transfer opportunities throughout the system, not just with those 2 transfer partners.
Thank you. My next question goes to the scorecard and that 6-year cohort. And how will it be determined whether that is something that we should keep or something that we need to change? And then what are the steps that are needed to bring what I believe is probably a better predictor is 4 years. I'd love to see 3 years, but we're not there yet. What are the steps that are necessary to make some of those determinations and decisions?
So the initial step is Vice Chancellor Ton Quinlivan has been given the responsibility of looking at all of our assets within the Chancellor's Office, bringing everyone together, our data teams, both in the agency and now that we're creating a data team under the Foundation Success Center, begin to have a dialogue about how we transition our data systems and what do we need to transition them. The next conversation has to be with the major constituencies in the field, both in terms of our research partners, the data teams at each of the campuses and the district office, to understand how we would streamline data reporting and how we ensure that we're getting the best data possible in the Chancellor's Office. We are also going to have to increase our capacity to not only capture data, but to be able to report data. We have limitations in the Chancellor's office right now. So we're going to have to improve that. And then, of course, working with the field, both in terms of our faculty partners and others, to look at the reporting possibilities and seeing how that impacts decision-making at the campus level. Because we don't want to create reporting requirements that have adverse impacts on how decisions are being made. We want to make sure that we're consistent with the vision for success, with guided pathways, and that we begin to align as much as possible all of these reporting requirements. That sounds easy to do. I just said that in about 2 minutes. It's going to take an enormous effort to bring those in line, but it is a commitment that we have made because much of the rest of these goals won't come to fruition without a better data system.
Thank you. And my final question has to do with those students that are transfer ready but never make their way through the doorway or the gateway to a four-year institution. I'm assuming that will require some additional kinds of information. One of the things that I continue to think about is that in many cases that's an older student that has a job requirement and has family obligations, but I could be absolutely wrong about that. But the other piece of that is that, and I could be wrong about what I'm about to say, that we haven't increased our Cal Grants for college, our community college students. And economics plays a huge role in the decisions that students make on whether they continue, whether they drop out, whether they continue. And so can I get your thoughts on how we get there to figure out, because that's a huge number of students that have transfer as their goal, but they don't do it.
This is a fundamental question embedded in the whole vision for success, and in particular the guided pathway framework, because the answer to your question involves a number of different variables depending on which kind of student that we're talking about. Because you have issues of the time it takes to get to transfer ready. And we understand that the longer that takes, the more opportunities there are to exit college for whatever life circumstance happens. So certainly one of the goals is to reduce credit accumulation and get students to transfer ready sooner so that they can make decisions as quickly as possible. But without getting into all the details, the reason I strongly believe in the guided pathway framework is because it forces the kinds of questions that you're asking to be asked in 114 different settings. These questions are fundamental to how we move forward. And without that framework, without looking at same data across 114 colleges, understanding what's going on in regions, and being able to look at how one college is doing in one region versus another, it's very difficult to come to a conclusion on what is actually going to change that dynamic. So I feel strongly that the Guided Pathways framework, once it matures and becomes implemented, it forces these questions to be asked. And it forces 114 situations where colleges are focused on improving those numbers and using consistent ways of asking the questions so that we can compare across colleges what's working and what's not working.
Okay, we'll have Vice President Epstein, then we have, I think, one public comment, then we'll go back to questions and comments from the board.
Thanks. I have two questions. One is on page 15 in the goal number 5, equities. Our goal is to eliminate equity gaps in 10 years, and I'm looking at this bar chart, and it doesn't get close. So I was just wondering how we're thinking about that.
Yes. So the bar chart illustrates our baseline, and whether you look at the 4-year completion or the 3-year completion, it's a tall task, no matter how you cut this up. So I think for me and my team, it's important for us to be clear about where we're at. We can only begin to close this gap if we are honest and clear about where we're at and that we make this a priority. So the Chancellor's office is not going to close the achievement gap. The 114 colleges are going to close the achievement gap. I think from our point of view, we have to be clear about where we're at and be clear about where we expect to be and provide the support, the infrastructure, and the funding to be directed to what's going to make the biggest difference. We have seen experience throughout the country where this has been accomplished. So I'm confident that it can be accomplished, and it's going to be important for us to ask the right questions and as we progress over these next 5 years, how are we doing? What can we do different? And how can we improve in closing this gap? So it is a tall order, but I think it's the most important, for me, the most important goal in this document.
So the 5 and 10-year estimates here, do they come from the effective implementation of the vision, or is this,
So
where does that come from?
What this is what we would have to increase in order to close the gap. So if you look at the 4-year completion, and let's just focus on African Americans, and let me go back to the slide here. So currently, we're for a 4-year completion, we're right around the 30% mark. To achieve the 5-year goal, we need to increase the rate by that gold bar. To close the gap within 10 years, we would need to increase the bar by that much as well.
But that doesn't close the gap. It's.
So the way this works is that as completion increases for those demographic groups, you will see then shifts in how they relate to the other demographic groups. So I don't know, Sandy, do we want to have somebody come up and comment, like Stacy, who actually can articulate much better than I can how this is going to work?
Hi, my name is Stacy Fisher, and I'm with the Success Center. And I'm with the Success Center at the Foundation. And I worked with a group of data experts to calculate all of these for the strategic vision and to come up with the data metrics. And that group included Chancellor's Office, people from Ed Results Partnership, a member of the Academic Senate, RP Group, et cetera. The thing to remember about this is you're looking at, I think what you're referring to is the gap between all other groups and the Asian subgroup as the equity gap. And the way equity gaps are generally identified is how much is a particular group below the average, right? And so what that increase is getting to, it's getting everybody up to the same, so that all groups meet the average of all groups. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The problem with you can use the best performing group as your reference group, but then everyone is disproportionately impacted, and that doesn't intuitively make sense. It sort of hides where the real problems are.
Okay, but one question: if everybody's doing guided pathways, though, presumably the Asian and white numbers would rise too, and wouldn't that affect the average?
Yes, and actually these numbers were calculated. For this to occur, the average will have to increase to about 45% over 10 years. So we had to we calculated the increase in the average into this.
Okay. Thank you. I have one other question on a different page.
Go anywhere, yeah.
No, I don't think. Well, I don't know. On page 21, when you have the old traditional state of the system, student success measures. I'd just like you to comment on that. I mean, I think it screams out for why we need a new vision. But I was curious just if these smaller increases, 3, 4, 5%, have been statistically significant, and how do we explain everything going up except for the completion rate?
So I'll make a general comment, and certainly if there's more specificity, I'll turn it over to Stacy. But I think this is the fundamental issue that we've been talking about for many, many, many years. I think there has been, and let me give credit where credit is due, there has been tremendous progress at identifying student success goals, at measuring how we're doing in terms of student success, publishing these numbers on 114 websites throughout the state and taking a hard look at where we're at. We've had the Student Success Task Force, which came out with a number of different changes that needed to be made. But we have always done this in a disjointed fashion. And so it's been difficult to see major changes in the overall aggregate numbers over a 6-year cohort. So what we're proposing now is that we're going to take a comprehensive approach, that we're going to look at the integration of all of these issues. We're not just going to have categoricals that sit out here that try to address one part of this problem, dollars over here to address a different part of this problem, and then seek legislation to achieve another part of the problem. We really need to take a more comprehensive approach. And we need to look at the $8.6, almost $9 billion now as the full ledger of resources that we have to apply to this problem. To me, what the scorecard metric trend speaks to is that although there's been tremendous innovation and effort in the local level, as a system, we haven't experienced any major shifts because we have not taken a look at the largest portion of our initiatives and our budget to enact the kinds of changes we need to see this number really shift. There are tremendous examples in the field of colleges doing great work, initiatives doing great work. But in order for that to impact over 6 years, the number of students that are going through our system, we need to see very different scale of change. And unless we approach that scale, you're not going to see a change in these numbers. I don't know, Stacy, if you have anything to add to that.
No, I mean, you mentioned the statistical significance of whether those changes are. I mean, the fact that you see a slight increasing trend in the size of the cohorts, I would argue that probably anything, we haven't tested it for statistical significance, but anything over a 3% change likely is statistically significant. But once again, it's still not a large and substantive change over time.
It's all about scale. So let's just take a break here just to have, I think, our only speaker card?
Yeah, Julie Bruno.
Julie Bruno, and then we'll go back to some questions and comments by the board. I know I certainly have some. Stacey, you can stay there. We have 3 seats. That's okay. All right. She wants to flee. Okay.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm done. So good afternoon. Just a couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to let you know regarding the transfer piece. We still continue to work with UC and our CSU partners on improving transfer. And in fact, John Stanskis, my vice president, is currently serving on the UC Office of the President Transfer Task Force. So we're continuing that dialogue that Chancellor Oakley had alluded to, and we're hoping to really make some progress for our students and making sure that our students are able to seamlessly transfer into both CSU and UC. The other thing I just wanted to alert you to is that at our last plenary session, the faculty really had some very good conversations around guided pathways and the vision and the goals, and they're very supportive of the goals. One of the things that they did want me to be sure to do is to make sure that we're working with the Chancellor's office to engage faculty in all of these conversations so that they can actually do what they need to do for their students. They're quite passionate about equity and closing those achievement gaps and getting those students to transfer. So I brought a copy of the resolution for you so you can see not only what we want to do, but also maybe some of our concerns as well, just to sort of inform the dialogue as we continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. Mon, anybody else? Arnaldo? Okay. Board Member Fawn, go ahead.
So when this booklet or when the strategic vision for success was envisioned, the big elephant in the room was not available, meaning the 100 million online college as envisioned by the governor was not readily available, should I say, for discussion, for integration into the vision. So as we embark on the discussion of the implementation of the online college, how do you see that play out and be integrated into the 5 or 6 items in the vision for success here?
I think initially, given the target audience, what we see is this fitting in to certainly goal 4, which is to increase the number of students who get jobs in their field of study. So as we consider the proposal before us around the 115th fully online college, the target is sub-associate degree credentials, which we had some of that discussion earlier about how we measure that, and that relate to wage gain. So wage gain is an important factor, getting individuals who are in a particular field of a particular job field the opportunity to earn a credential or a badge or a stackable credential, whatever you call it, that allows them some wage gain that they can continue to build. And I certainly echo what our Senate President Bruno said, that none of these should be terminal credentials, that they should all be opportunities to add on to. So I would see that being incorporated certainly into Goal 4, and to some extent, we'd have to look at how it relates to Goal 1, although we'd have to expand our notion of what a credential is, because I think we were more limiting in Goal 1 when we looked at the numbers. We were looking at larger credentials, career certificates, associate degrees, things of that nature. But we have the experience already in strong workforce in beginning to look at building stackable credentials, beginning to look at badges. So some of this will not be new to our dialogue. It will just, we'll need to figure out how to best incorporate that into the goal.
Okay, Board Member Avalos.
Thank you, Chancellor, for your presentation. So obviously, don't have to state this, but this is very audacious, very, very hairy, right, in terms of what you're trying to do. And I applaud you for that, because I think, you know, given the students of California and what we need for them, this is the vision that we need. My question for you is, you know, what are the caveats, right? I mean, you lay this out, great vision, what we want to do, but what are your concerns? What's this predicated on? You know, is it funding? Is it, you know, tell me some of that we should look for, because, you know, like any financial institution would say, you know, this is the vision of where we're headed, and, you know, this is where the market's going to go, but if this happens, this happens, this happens, I don't know if I can get there, right? So I want to hear some of that. But before that, I also want to mention that, you know, this vision, I think, can be easily packaged, as you know, and we can get funding for this on a national scale from private funders, which I think really makes a big difference as well. But go ahead, caveats.
Let me start with your last question first. Yes, absolutely. If you recall, there are a group of funders who came together to help fund this effort. We are receiving national attention for this document, in addition to in the state. I mean, not to take anything away from my colleagues in CSU and UC, they're very aggressive in achieving their goals, but I don't think they have anything that clearly articulates the 6 things that they're going to accomplish over the next several years. This document was created not just for internal consumption, but to help all of our partners across the state and the country help us help our students. So we're hoping that that's what it does. What worries me? A lot of things worry me. Discipline worries me. In order to accomplish, as all of you know from the different hats that you wear in business, in philanthropy, in nonprofit sector, wherever you come from, discipline is key in achieving goals. We do not have the discipline yet to accomplish these goals. And discipline means that we are going to do some things more and some things less. We are going to put an emphasis on things that have scalable impact, and we're going to have less emphasis on things that have impact on smaller groups of students. Not to take anything away from those impacts, but if we want scale, we only have so many dollars, as Board Member Reed clearly articulated to me. How are we going to be disciplined in deploying those dollars? And it's hard to see how that's going to happen today. We also need discipline at the executive team level, and we need discipline at the Board of Governor level, just as we need discipline at the 72 district boards of trustees. We need to ask the right questions and continue to ask those questions time after time after time, and not shift focus as the winds change. Because this is not a 1, 2 year, 3 year initiative. This is a 5, 10, 15-year initiative. And while some of us may not be here in 15 years, we have to remain disciplined to this agenda over that period of time. Where we've seen closing of achievement gaps, and I will take, for lack of finding a closer relative, Valencia College in Florida. They've had consistent leadership, a consistent approach, and a consistent agenda for the better part of nearly 15 years. They are showing great progress in closing achievement gap. I think that's going to be the hardest part of this, is being consistent and persistent over a long period of time, and holding ourselves accountable to these measures. It's easy for us as administrators, as board members, as members of the system, when things get a little uncomfortable, we shift the metric. We cannot shift the metric this time. We can improve the metric, we can get better data, but we can't shift the metric. And that's something that I will rely on you all to help us do. We have to remain firm. The other part of this is we are going to hit a recession. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that we will. So how do we lead up to that recession in terms of trying to get discipline on campuses about how to make choices? A lot has been said today about categoricals and how some colleges make the right choice, some don't. As Chancellor Jack Scott used to say, when the food gets scarce, the table manners get worse. When the table manners get worse, can we ensure that colleges are making choices based on the vision for success? And how do we do that? How do we create an accountability framework to assure that happens? We've got a few years to implement an accountability framework. I think that's got to be a very important aspect to what we do, because otherwise we get pulled by circumstances related to a recession, and hopefully it's not as bad as the last one. Believe me, having been on a campus through the last one, it's not a lot of fun. But if there's clarity on what the system office expects from our colleges, it makes the life of our college leaders much better. And I think we need to be clear. The final thing I'll say, it isn't about money. A lot of people will say that this cannot be done if there's no money in the system. What I would argue is that this has to be done. And we've got to find ways to use the money we have to get this done. Because we are not going to see another $8 billion on top of what we have to reform everything and to improve everything. So that goes along with the discipline. This has got to be not about more money. This has got to be about the money that we have and how we use it. And of course, we're going to advocate for more money. Absolutely. Our students deserve every single penny. Our students deserve more than $7,000 something per student. They deserve at least as much as the University of California, and we're going to continue to fight for that. But we can't make it the excuse that someday we will get that money and then we'll improve outcomes.
Okay. You guys are just about worn out, so my turn to talk. A couple things, just a few things. One, I want to commend your team for putting together this report. The graphics are great, and it's difficult. It's really difficult to graphically represent what you all were trying to communicate here. So I think, we don't think about it. We look at these. This really probably took a ton of work, and you guys did a great job. Whoever did it, excellent job. Second, I want to tell you, I appreciate the way you started this presentation, Eloy, talking about the decline in enrollment since 2011, 2012, and the increase in resources. I think that context is very important. And how you just ended that presentation about $8 billion, we're not going to get another $8 billion for a while. So we have to make the best of what we have. And I think that relationship is important for people to think about. We've had a tremendous run with this governor, and we need to make the most of it. So having what you have called in the past the North Star, these goals, really helps focus the mind. So I wanted to make a couple comments or suggestions about some of the goals. First of all, the one you know that I care a lot about, Goal 4, which is about it's the career education goal. We don't have the right goal. We've all been struggling with it. And I think as you all develop another iteration of this, I would suggest I would go back to my big bugaboo, which is what we really need to be looking at is wage gains. I'm going to keep saying it, Eloy.
We don't disagree.
Yeah, and the question is,
The
what's your
issue is
data
the data.
source? What's your data source?
Right.
You know, STARS is looking at the percent increase in student earnings. I keep thinking we want to have some measure that shows, maybe it's something like the folks who leave our program, what percentage of them make above the median versus folks who have not left our program, who don't have a certificate or a degree. But we've got it. It's really about wages. It's not about the relationship of what we're doing. And obviously, we just don't have the data point yet. So happy to help in any way I can and think that through. I think it's a very, very important thing. Second, on the cohort, you sort of opened the question about what four-year completion is absolutely the right way to go. I think we need to get rid of the 6-year. I never understood. I got why they did it, but it was never persuasive to me. And thank you, Vice President Epstein, for referring us back to the old scorecard metrics, which are just incremental. And that 4-year cohort is really what we need to be aiming to. It would be great if we could go 3 or 2 years, but right now, if we can just switch everything to the 4-year cohort, it's so much more meaningful to real people out in the world. 6 years, when you tell people about a 6-year completion rate, they basically laugh at you. It is indefensible. So that 4-year metric of the cohort, I think, is really important. And so that's my opinion. And ultimately, it's the Board of Governors that set the vision for success. And so I strongly believe you're on the right path with that. What else do I want to note? The regional achievement gaps. This is so instructive. The Vice President Epstein just leaned over to me. I never realized that about the Inland Empire. That's why this is such a great document. And the way you all communicated that with the little bubbles and the circles, really well done. The presentation we had today about the Indio Education Center and the very moving presentation by Vice President Neary about the population of Indio. It's a story that people just don't associate with the Inland Empire. So that little bubble has just communicated a whole world right there. And so well done on this. I know I actually had issues with this goal as well, trying to figure out how you guys were going to get there, and I just want to commend you for figuring something out that's defensible. Lastly, it is audacious, but it's absolutely critical, and the reason we know this is because the incremental improvements that were made in the old scorecard, which are almost statistically insignificant, we don't have time for that anymore. And so I will repeat what I say at almost every one of our board meetings. It's all about scale. And so to your point about discipline, it strikes me that we should all be asking ourselves when we're debating programs and allocation of resources, will this get us to scale? Do we have the data to back up that assertion? And then if we do this program, what are we not doing? Right? We can't do it all. And so I think your point about having a vision with hard metrics that are consistent is critical. We knew that this first year we were going to give it our best shot and would probably have to tweak it. And we have a couple we're going to need to adjust. But that's okay. You're being very honest about it. Those BLS statistics on, oh my gosh, on the workforce, that just sort of blew you out of the water. But that's okay. You're honest about it. You're transparent. We'll adjust the goal as necessary. So I just want to say great job. This is going to get better every year. But as somebody who used to be the CEO of a large agency, you're doing the absolute right thing. You set your measures, you set your vision, and everything has to consistently be communicated to those North Stars and nothing else. Funding formulas, programs, metrics. So, all circling back to the last thing I want to say is this is why that funding formula reform is so important. Because up to this point, we've been nibbling at the edges with little programs here, little programs there. We have to address the main piece, which is the apportionment. That's scary, but if we don't do that, what are we talking about $8 billion? We're not grabbing at the bulk of what affects our students. So thank you for the presentation. We're going to take a break unless anybody else has any more comments. We're going to take this time.
Can I just make one closing
please,
comment?
Chancellor.
I'll make it quick. I just want to say two things. One is I would ask us all to remember that while we have representatives of constituent groups always in this building, always in these meetings, from the students to the faculty to everybody, we have to remember that constituent group that doesn't come to these meetings, and that's the 6+ million Californians that we are not reaching today. Right. And I bring that up because it's important to the health of our state, and we are the only system that has done anything to step forward to try and reach those Californians. And the final thing I want to say, and I was reminded of this a little earlier, there's been one of the issues in the state of the system that is not addressed is the impact of the 2016 presidential election on our system. We've talked a lot about DACA. We've talked a lot about a lot of issues. And let me be clear, because I've heard from many people in the system, I want to make sure that everybody understands in the system that I and my team honor and respect the office of the President of the United States, as well as Congress and everyone involved with setting federal priorities. And if I've ever said anything disrespectful to the office of the President, then the system has my apologies. I do want to be clear that I am going to advocate for every single one of our students and advocate as hard as I can, as clear as I can. And if I need to disagree with federal policy, I'm going to disagree with federal policy. So if I say that to the board because I just want to be clear from my perspective what it is I'm doing and what it is I'm not doing. And I don't mean any disrespect to the President, to the leadership of Congress, but I will, as respectfully as possible, advocate for our students.
Great. With that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 3:25, and then we're going to talk about federal and state update. All right.